Welcome to Module 3, Wellness Counseling in Action. In this module, we will be covering chapters 9 through 12 from our text, Wellness Counseling, a Holistic Approach to Prevention and Intervention. We will also be covering a bit from our other optional text, Strength-Centered Counseling. By the end of Module 3, students will be able to identify and describe effective strategies for assessment and wellness-based case conceptualization. Explain the importance of identifying stage of change during treatment planning process. Identify and describe the definition and importance of SMART goals. Apply 2 models for wellness counseling intervention. And describe how the wellness counseling approach can be implemented with couples, families, and groups. Here we have an overview of the entirety of Module 3. Assessment and case conceptualization, treatment planning, interventions, and couples and families, ending with closing remarks. In this recording, we will only be reviewing assessment and case conceptualization. As usual, I began each of these chapters with the quote, "The greatest compliment that was ever paid me was when one asked me what I thought and attended to my answer." In addition, for Chapter 9, I also included a quote from the recommended reading Strength-Centered Counseling. "The eyes see only what the mind is prepared to comprehend." Give you just a moment to contemplate and reflect upon those quotes and think about what they might mean for you. Before we continue with Chapter 9, Assessment and Case Conceptualization, I would also like to add a quick reminder that the Module 3 worksheet is available in Moodle. Feel free to follow along. In general, assessment and case conceptualization are a key component to what we do as counselors. Wellness counseling assessment begins as soon as we meet the client. What are we noticing, and how do we reflect this to the client in a manner that increases hope? Assessment is complex and comprehensive. Wellness counseling assessment emphasizes the importance of assessing client strengths and sharing these strengths with the client. Wellness counseling assessment increases understanding of holistic wellness and how wellness interconnects to the presenting problem. It informs goal setting and treatment planning, and is a process that can assist to empower the client. Case conceptualization is the integration of client presenting concerns, strengths, and goals through a wellness framework. It provides a roadmap for our work with the client. What might be helpful to consider when we are thinking about case conceptualization is how do we co-construct meaning and a narrative that is understood and accepted by both the client and the counselor. Go ahead and take a few moments to think about what strikes you about wellness counseling assessment and case conceptualization. How might this be different than other approaches that you're used to? Before we continue in our text with assessment and case conceptualization, we're going to veer off that path a little bit in order to get a firm foundation in the principles of strength-centered counseling. Strength-centered counseling is not the absence of solid graduate training in clinical psychodiagnosis, but rather it is a style of being with others that is not distracted by it. I hope that we might ground ourselves in this work of strength-centered counseling as we move forward throughout the next few chapters. In this table, you will see the principles of strength-centered counseling, which is taken from the recommended text, Strength-Centered Counseling, Ward and Rauter. The Module 3 worksheet has a section for you to reflect upon these 9 essential principles of strength-centered counseling, review the descriptions, and consider which of these you have more access to in your work with others, and which of those you would like to have more access of. These principles of strength-centered counseling stem from the foundation of a shared understanding. When we enter wellness counseling or strength-based work with clients, we enter that space attempting to have a shared understanding with that client, an understanding of that client's unique qualities and strengths that they demonstrate in their efforts to stand up to life's struggles, which then leads to promoting hope for change. It is through creating this shared understanding that we develop that therapeutic alliance with the client and create the means for hope, which will foster positive outcomes for that client. Additionally, strength-centered counselors and wellness-based counselors work hard to be able to hold both the client struggle and strength within the same space. Please feel free to refer back to this table in your worksheet as we continue on our conversation about wellness counseling, assessment, and case conceptualization. We will also come back to it during our Friday Zoom session. Co-creating definitions of wellness with the client. As the starting point for our work with clients, we always begin with an informed consent. Part of our informed consent includes a description of our clinical approach. Thinking about what you know about wellness counseling, what would you say to a client during your informed consent related to your wellness approach? Page 164 in our text has a quick example about how the authors describe wellness counseling in their informed consent. Go ahead and take a minute to review this example if you haven't yet, and think about how you would describe wellness counseling in your informed consent. The authors indicate that after providing our informed consent, it may be helpful to next move into having the clients offer their definition about wellness. When we have a conversation with the client about their definition of wellness, we're starting to have a greater understanding for what wellness means to them and their overall worldview. Next, it may be helpful to present a wellness framework to the client. We might collaborate with the client when we show a specific wellness model and ask about how that fits for the client. Ask about what might be missing or what shifts their perspective. Throughout this time, our intent as a wellness counselor and strength-centered counselor is to open space and, as we mentioned before, be able to hold space for both the struggle and the strengths as we begin to dive in to the wellness framework. When we as the wellness counselors are able to hold space for both the strength and the struggle, we offer hope for the client as we acknowledge that where there are problems, there are also preferences. Where there is resistance, there's also anticipation. Where there is illness, there are opportunities for wellness. And where there is despair, there's also hope. Moving back into our wellness text, we are going to review the critical concepts in wellness psychoeducation. Key concepts that we might want to address with our clients are the interconnectedness and holism of wellness. This is something that we've been continuously coming back throughout the modules. This is a key conversation that we might have with our clients as it highlights the connectedness and how improvements or deficits in one area of wellness also impact other areas of our wellness. The next key concept to discuss with our clients is that small changes can yield large results. This conversation can increase hope, knowing that even small positive changes can improve wellness, not just in that one area, but in multiple areas. The third critical concept is that strengths are as important as struggles. Here we go back to that concept of holding space for both the struggles and the strengths. The last critical concept that we're going to touch base on is life balance. Our text talks about describing life balance by using a metaphor. One metaphor that the text describes is using the idea of a mobile that goes over a baby's crib. If one portion dips to the side, the whole mobile is off balance. This is true of our wellness as well. Assessing wellness, strengths, and goals. Now that we've worked with our client to agree upon the wellness framework and foundation for counseling, we will move into more informal and formal assessment measures. Strengths and wellness domains can be assessed using scaling. The text gives many examples and prompts, and a few of them are here for you to review. We might ask the client to explore or explain their lowest and/or highest rating of overall wellness, or their lowest or highest rating of specific domain wellness. Once we have these ratings, we can get a sense of where they're at now or where they've been in their life. We may also ask, what were you doing differently when you experienced greater wellness? Or what has changed, or what are you doing differently since that has declined? Here are some additional prompt suggestions from our text. Go ahead and take a minute to review them. Think about what is the best fit for your style and what things you maybe have already been using with clients or in role plays, and what you'd like to use more of. Wellness measures. There are both informal and formal measures for wellness. There are also domain-specific or holistic measures. So these would be more formalized measures that look at either one specific wellness domain or wellness more holistically. Two examples of holistic wellness measures that are formal measures are the 5-Factor Wellness Inventory and the Perceived Wellness Survey. The 5-Factor Wellness Inventory is one of the most comprehensive wellness measures. Perceived Wellness Survey is also very frequently used. As you are sharing the results of the wellness tool with the client, check in to confirm what fits or does not fit with their experience. So this means that we're going to go through either the informal or the formal assessment. Once we gather our data, we will review that as the counselor, and then we're going to share that with the client. And we really want to have a shared understanding of what this means for that client. Wellness assessments. You can take a look at Table 9.1 on page 172 to see a full table of some of the wellness assessments the authors shared with us. I just wanted to make a note that it might be useful to refer to this table if you are still in need of an assessment tool for your wellness program. If you plan to use one of the assessment tools from the table on page 172 for your wellness program, please remember to check the reliability and validity and the group it was normed for. For example, the 5-Factor Wellness Inventory had a norm group overrepresented by young adult white females with higher education levels. Therefore, if I were working with a group in my wellness program substantially different from this group, I would want to choose a different assessment tool. Balancing wellness and clinical assessments. Wellness counselors are best served by balancing clinical assessments with wellness inventories. An example that our text gives is using both the Beck Depression Inventory and the 5-Factor Wellness Inventory. We want to notice the interconnection and the themes from both of these assessment tools and share those with the clients. If some areas are low, Hope can be increased by noting how small changes often have ripple effects to other wellness domains. The goal of assessment is to highlight the strengths and interconnected nature of wellness. Multicultural considerations. As culturally competent counselors, we will value the client's description of wellness and wellness domains. We also note that some cultures may identify more with interconnectedness of wellness than others, and some cultures may value some domains over other domains of wellness. Consider the differences that we might see with collectivist or individualistic cultures. Wellness counseling is for all clients, not just clients with privilege. We utilize strengths as a framework for our counseling work, and we can work with clients with a variety of presenting concerns. Wellness-based client case conceptualization. Case conceptualization is the bridge between assessment and treatment planning. We're beginning to think of how do we understand this client. Holism is at the core of wellness counseling and is also at the core of wellness-based client conceptualization. It allows us as the clinician to see the whole picture instead of just pieces or parts of the picture. Counselors can also integrate other theoretical orientations alongside wellness-based conceptualization. For example, if I were working with a client and noticed that social domains or family relationships were significantly impacting many areas of that client's wellness, I may come up with a conceptualization from a wellness-based framework, but also integrate family systems work. Benefits of wellness assessment. Wellness assessment can actually be used as an initial intervention. Assessment as intervention helps us to increase awareness, increase motivation, identify sources of strength and resources that the clients have, increase hope and empowerment, and begin to help the client see the ripple effect of small change. Applying wellness counseling in crisis scenarios. We can use wellness concepts even in crisis scenarios. We might utilize crisis assessment, but keep in mind the holistic perspective. Our text talks about integrating the wellness framework within the crisis assessment. We're using strengths to help develop the coping plan. A coping plan can integrate all of the areas of wellness, such as emphasizing both physical wellness coping strategies and social wellness coping strategies, would allow for a more holistic and integrated approach to the coping plan. And as we've been talking about throughout this module, it would allow us to acknowledge the importance of holding space for the struggle while also holding the hope and strengths for the client. Assessment and Case Conceptualization Review. We've now come to the end of Chapter 9. We've talked about integrating wellness assessments and clinical assessments, implementing wellness-based case conceptualization while considering diagnostic information, identifying strengths, resources, and struggles, and increasing awareness and hope through the assessment process. We'll come back together for Chapter 10 with treatment planning as we continue in Module 3.